Darian and I are back with a new episode on questions. Welcome back to 3 Trainwell podcasts, where we inspire you to move more, to get stronger, and have fun. This is going to be a hot and quick episode with common questions. Darian, I'm going to kick it off to you. Question number 1. Why do the same workouts repeat for 4 weeks, for 5 weeks, for maybe even 8 weeks at a time?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what we're talking about here is like a training phase or a training cycle. So you'll see a lot of programs out there, strength training programs out there, and you'll see they're like a 4-week program or a 6-week program, an 8-week program, whatever it may be, like you said. And the reason for that is so that you can have muscle adaptation. So when you do an exercise, let's say, for example, we're doing squats with 65 pounds. If we don't do squats again at very least the next week, it's going to be hard for us to ever increase our strength in squats. So we have to, again, do it the next week, and maybe we add a little bit of weight. Maybe we can't add weight that next week, but then the following week we add a little bit of weight. So you will want to keep repetition. And I know variety, hot topic. We all love variety. It's the spice of life. But when it comes to training and workouts, if you do really truly want to see progress, and like maybe you don't care about like progress, and you don't have to care about progress with your workouts, but if you do want to see progress, you will have to continue a training program and doing those same exercises repetitively week after week and increase your weights to be able to increase your weights.
I'm going to add to that and say that the neurologic adaptation, the nervous system is always more important, in my opinion, than the skeletal system or the muscular system, because it controls both. And for you to really ingrain a movement pattern, you need repetition. It's just plain and simple. And if you really, really want variety, well, we have variety and we have boring, right? So if you get really, really bored, I always tell people there's nothing boring about results, because you will see an increase in strength, an increase in movement quality, an increase in force output, whatever that may be, with repetition. If you are super sold on variety, no problem. We'll just do an A week and a B week. But that 3rd week, we're back to the A week. And the 4th week, we're back to the B week. But that cycle is still going to repeat itself for, I think, a minimum of at least 4 weeks. My phases are 5 weeks. I'll tell you, at Division I, they were usually 6 to 8 weeks. So
yeah,
that's why.
Yeah, I think also finishers. There's lots of ways to add in variety and still repeat your main lifts and your main movement patterns. Like I love adding in a different finisher each week. That could look like 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off of kettlebell swings. But then the next week I'll do thrusters or, whatever fun move may be, but I'm still going to do the same basic workout. So lots of place for variety. That's good. Okay, question 2, Joey. What workout split should I do? Why would I do work every muscle every day? In other words, why would I do a full body versus doing like a body part split versus doing, you see some like really specific splits out there from like, chest, tries, quads, hams, push, pull, all the different things.
The split is always goal centric and frequency dependent. So if we're training 2 days a week, we're going to do, in my opinion, 2 full bodies. If we're doing 7 days a week, maybe 6 days a week, then we should probably do some sort of body part split. So it's frequency dependent and goal dependent. Let's go over a few goals real quick. Let's say I'm an endurance athlete and I can only train twice a week for strength. We're going to do 2 full body sessions. That's the best split for you. You could get away with, there's a million ways to skin the cat, but you could get away with a push-pull, maybe an upper-lower. I don't personally like doing lower body on an isolated day when I'm doing endurance stuff, because there's so much tax on the legs as it is. And then let's shift it. Let's say your goal is strictly hypertrophy. I think the sweet spot to work up to, not right out of the gate, is 3 to 4 days. I think 4 days is the sweet spot. 5 days, a little too much for most people, unless your training age is very, very high. In that regard, if we're at a 3-day split, I love a push-pull legs, but I like to put legs in between because it's just a little easier on the shoulders. Or you can do a total upper-lower. or you can do a total body push day. So even quads and chest and triceps and calves. The second day could be all your pulling muscles, so your glutes, your hamstrings, your upper back, stuff like that. And then that third day you can sprinkle in even some arms and some core and some extra shoulders. Or you can do another total body at 3 days a week too. So you can totally vary it based on your goal. My favorite split though, Darian, I got to tell you, is a 4-day split. And this is like no one talks about this. I kind of figured this out. But total body, upper body, lower body, and then another total body. I love that, the freedom to play with it. Frequency training once every 5 days, I think, is key for muscle hypertrophy. But yeah.
Yeah. I do want to say, I personally love a 4-day split as well. That's like my favorite training style. When I do 5 days, I kind of start to feel not as good. But I do push, pull, push, pull. So lower and upper push, lower and upper pull, lower and upper push, lower and upper pull. But I think if we're going to do like TLDR of this, if you're a beginner, no matter what, I think just do full body, because it's just the simplest approach. Just pick a move kind of from each category, work your full body. As you get more and more advanced, add more workout days. That's when you'd want to switch to a split. Do you think that's right?
What does TLDR mean?
Too long, didn't read. So we're summarizing. As in what you said, too long.
Okay, number 3. How do I measure progress for workouts?
Okay, that's broad. I feel like there's so many ways you can measure progress for workouts. I mean, if we're thinking about trainwell, our trainwell app, we have so many ways to measure progress. I mean, we have a whole list of progress measurements, everything from like body measurements like waist circumference, bicep circumference, to body weight, which I pinned that. I want to come back to it because I don't think that's a great indicator of progress. You can track, weights you're lifting over time. Like you started at 135 pound deadlift, now you're at 185 pound deadlift. You could track energy. In our app, you can track energy levels, happiness levels, just like whatever is meaningful to you, that's how you want to track progress. I've given clients benchmark workouts where, let's say, they just want to kind of improve their overall fitness. Okay, so we'll test at the beginning, how many push-ups can you do in a minute? How many, sit-ups can you do in a minute? Squats, how much can you lift? Things like that. And then we'll do that again after 1 or 2 cycles of training. So this is a tricky question because there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to measuring progress. I think it's just about, 1, keeping track. If progress is something you care about, keep track of something, whatever that may be, and do that for the course of a training cycle or longer. The reason I don't think body weight is a great indicator of progress, even if your goal is I want to lose weight, I think what most people mean to say is they want to lose body fat. Because when you say lose weight, your weight is going to fluctuate even within 5 pounds in one day. It depends on how many carbohydrates you're eating, because carbohydrates naturally retain more water. It depends on how much your salt intake was. Are you hydrated? How did you sleep? Did you go to the bathroom in the morning? There's so many factors that go into body weight, which is why I think it's not always the best indicator of progress.
TLDR, one size fits nobody. Shout out Joe DeFranco. One size fits nobody. A little too long there, D. I think everyone should have a training journal, because handwritten, because it does something to the brain. Listen to our interview with Kara to learn about how handwritten positive thinking can change. But pick one thing that's outside of just body weight, either how you felt, how you slept, how you recovered. Track that, because I guarantee you if you track that over time consistently, you're going to see some sort of measurement.
Are you tracking anything?
Oh yeah, me?
What do you track?
My top 3, resting heart rate, sleep quality, and strength gains.
I don't track anything right now.
Why?
Because I'm not looking to have progress. I'm just looking to feel. I know my body well. I want to feel good. I want to go to the gym 4 days a week. That's my goal.
But
Lift
certainly
weights.
you want to use training to enhance your life, right? So you're looking for some sort of progress, are you not? Like
I'm not.
some sort of feedback mechanism to say, "Hey, actually I'm getting results. I'm feeling better. I'm recovering. I'm doing life better." Like is that's what you're looking for, right?
No, I don't really have a goal.
Hmm.
I think in climbing, I have a goal
Well, see, there you go. There you go. So you're probably using climbing or you're training to enhance climbing, right? Because you love climbing so much.
to some extent. I think I just love moving my body, you know? I
Move.
think it's okay. Not everyone has to have a goal, you know? You don't have to.
That's a we can have our goal discussion later, but I think the problem with not having any goals is you can run up and down the field and never score.
Yeah, but what if you don't want to score? What if you don't care if you
Then you're
score?
probably not me and my kind.
Oh my God, kick to the curb? Goodness gracious. Here's question 5 for you, Joey. Are we
Four.
on 5? No, we're on 4. Why is the calorie burn so low during a strength training workout in comparison to like a cardio or hit style workout?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, the short answer is there's strength days and then there's conditioning days. That's why the field is called strength and conditioning. In a true strength workout where you're chasing numbers, where you're chasing strength gains, you need simply more rest. So you're a minimum you should be resting 2 3 minutes between sets. That's how you get stronger. If you're doing one of these programs where you're resting for like 30 seconds and you're able to do it again, your load simply or your intensity is not as high. You should be needed to or you should be needing that longer rest. That in itself is why your calorie expenditure is lower. When you're doing a conditioning workout such as a hit, an interval, some fartlek, Tabata, even just a consistent steady state, because you're always moving, right? There's very little rest. That's why your expenditure is higher. But please, please, please understand the difference between strength and conditioning.
Yeah, so in other words, well, can you just like explain like is it even important to track calories for a
No,
workout?
no, no. That's the hard thing because wearables these days are just like you're constantly looking at your watch, right? I get pretty competitive with my move ring because I compete with my family and friends and stuff like that. But it's all just gibberish. Like that has no correlation to how much fat I'm losing, how I'm feeling. It may make me feel better. I may want to talk about it at a potluck, like, hey, I burned this many calories, but it really doesn't matter. That has no direct correlation to your progress.
Yeah, okay, cool. Nothing to add, nothing to
Nothing to
note.
add. Okay, moving on. So, on that point, with strength training, Darian, do we need deload weeks?
I actually think that's not super cut and dry. Like, it really depends on your training intensity. If you're running a program, if it's intense, if you're noticing diminishing returns, if you're not feeling good, if you're noticing signs of like under recovery overtraining, like literally feeling bad in your body, depression, moodiness, exhaustion, that kind of stuff, for sure, absolutely, you need a deload week. If you've been training for a long time at a high intensity without ever pulling back on the weights, yeah, you likely do want to take a deload week to, be preventative. You don't want to get to the point of being super burnt out and not recovered. But if your workouts are relatively moderate, if you're not progressively overloading, I don't think you necessarily need a deload week. What are your thoughts? Do you agree?
It just depends. I mean, all
Yeah.
these questions, right? You can answer. It depends. Who are you? Are you a Olympic athlete? Are you Grandma Betty who just wants to garden better? Grandma Betty may not need that deload week because she's going to the Bahamas for spring break, and that's her deload week. If you're an Olympic athlete, then yes, you're gonna have to have very cyclical recovery slash deload weeks. By the way, the deload week is simply a reduction of
Mhm.
intensity of your training volume. Training volume is basically your sets and your repetitions, and your rest really bundled into one. That's your total volume. So it really depends on what your goals is. If you're just starting out, I think it's wise to back off every 4 or 5 weeks, every 6 weeks, just to kind of give you a recheck. But that goes back to measuring progress. For me, again, I track my resting heart rate, my sleep, and my strength. So I always see how I'm feeling and be like, oh, my resting heart rate's a little elevated today. I'm gonna chill out for the next week. Perfect. It's Christmas time. I'm gonna have some cookies, gonna get some eggnog, and I'm gonna chill out this week.
Yeah, actually, this next question is like perfectly matched with our deload question. Why am I feeling exhausted and not recovered from workouts? What can I do better to recover? Might be a deload week.
Might be a deload week. My short and sweet answer to this is get more sleep. I think sleep is number one in the pie chart that should be movement slash health slash wellness. I think sleep is number one because that's when your hormones recover. That's when your stress comes down. That's when the batteries are recharged. So, short answer, get some more sleep, quality sleep. At least 7 hours. We know that from research. Cool, 68 degrees, dark, blackout shades, and quiet. Now, we have 2 young kids, 3 and under. My wife's pregnant, so it's not really the most quiet, but do what you can.
Yeah, well, if so, let's say someone's getting sleep or it's not they're like us and they have little kids and like sleep is not a given, you know? What else can someone do to recover?
You asking me? Okay, number
Yeah,
two,
yeah.
I think, and we talked about this before, I think nutrition is more important than movement. And so I would say look at how many inflammatory foods you're eating. And the only way to know that is to truly do a self audit on what you are eating. Like, are you having potato chips? I had some potato chips earlier today. I know my elbows are going to hurt a little bit later. My joints are going to kind of cranky. So I'm going to cut back on some inflammatory foods, throw in some more adult foods. Apple a day keeps the doctor away. That's going to be my number two, is clean up my nutrition just a little bit or a lot.
Adult foods, Joey. Adults eat any foods they want.
Well, you know what I mean. I mean, like, so our 3-year-old Max, he loves Cheetos. He loves Cheez-Its. He loves donuts. He loves, what do you call them? Vanilla wafers, cardboard carbs. So, as an adult, people know what I'm saying. Don't always be eating those things. Uh,
There's a time and a place for everything that is
there is,
satisfying
for
for you.
sure. At Home Depot the other day, I'm building a barn door. Of course, I'm going to go get a hot dog after the hot dog guy. Definitely.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's good. I think just anytime you can add in restful, even just doing some breathing, go back and listen to our episode with Lily, doing some breathing practice, some meditation work. What do you think about like mobility and stretching for recovery? I don't think like a stretching session is necessarily going to help with recovery so much, but like it could make you feel better.
Yeah, that'd be my number three is movement. So going back to sleep number one, nutrition number two, and number three would be some sort of active recovery is what I call it. Maybe a foam roll session, maybe some massage, go do a float tank, go to a hot tub, something that can be restorative, something that can make you feel good. And if you're in Alaska with no modalities around, no PT, no physio, whatever, then maybe it's just a foam roll and breathing session, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, Darian, should I be going to failure on all my sets?
Once again, we should say it together. It
It depends.
depends. So it really depends on your goal. I mean, I personally don't think like well, most certainly you don't need to be going to failure on every set, every what on every movement.
Except biceps.
Well, I like never work biceps. Um, I think there is like a risk I think to going to failure. I mean, you are putting your body under a huge load and like going to failure is that like oh there's multiple ways you can go to failure, right? You can like do the heaviest possible weight for one rep or you can do a weight that's whatever, manageable, moderate, and do it as many possible times as you can. I personally think that is a little less risky than doing as heavy of weight as you can for a 1 rep max. But I think, again, there's a time and a place for that in a training protocol. And personally, I don't think it's something you'd want to do every day because you're putting a huge tax on your body. And it is going to be hard to recover from that. So absolutely don't. I think if we're thinking about RIR, reps in reserve, for most workouts, and again, depends on your goal, depends on what you're doing, you want to feel like you have reps in reserve at the end of a set, which means at the end of any given set, you should feel like you can do maybe couple more reps. I think form is important. You want to be able to maintain form through your sets. And when you're getting to failure, I do think form will break down. That's part of training naturally, but ideally you're keeping good form for most of the reps.
Well said. Going back to what you said, it depends. What's your goal? Like if you're a power lifter, if you're an Olympic weightlifter, you may need to push that envelope, not to all your sets, but to certainly some, because that's what you're going to do in competition. And they're very scientific with their failure sets. But I've spoken to Bryce Lewis, probably one of the strongest. Look him up. He's in Colorado. Got the chance to train around him. He very rarely goes to failure, especially on his compound lifts. Compound lifts are multi-joint, so your squats, your deadlift, your presses. But on your accessories, he's big into reps in reserve, how many sets you leave in the tank. I think it's a good standard to be 1 to 3 reps in reserve on most your lifts, and just be cautious of that because failure will beat up your joint. There's a cost to everything, a biological cost to everything. So remember, training should enhance your life, not take away.
You know what I used to say when I was like really big into CrossFit? I used to say, we don't quit, we fail. Like we don't just stop. We go to failure.
What's
we
my hat
stop
say?
when our body makes us stop.
What's my hat say?
Never quit.
That's right, baby.
But you know what? I do think there's a place for like having a moment of, is this safe, what I'm doing? And deciding I should stop now. It's not necessarily always beneficial to go to failure. So I rescind my former quote.
Okay.
I rescind. Okay. Where are we at?
Numero 8.
What should I do on low energy days for my workouts? Like if I'm not feeling it, should I still do a workout? Should I do some of a workout? Should I do something else? Should I just do it anyway? Be honest, Joey. I know what you actually think.
Well, our coach always used to say this. I've had numerous strength coaches over the years. They always said, toughen up, buttercup. And there was some truth to that, right? Like, am I psychologically not there? Did I not well prepare for this training session? Where are my thoughts at, right? And sometimes those are the best days that you have when you don't feel like doing it. And discipline is literally the definition of doing something when you don't want to. So keep that in consideration. However, big comma, if you're really run down, if you're consistently sapped of energy, then I like to use the battery gauge on this. So if I'm only feeling 50%, I'll still go and get my work done. I'll still check that box just because it's so edifying and it's such a habit for me. But I'll only do 50% volume. So maybe just one set. If it's a run, maybe 50% of my run. It's only maybe a 15-minute run. And I will feel so much better after that I check the box and move forward. But in my logbook, I'm saying, hey, I felt kind of bad today. Maybe need a deload week next week.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a place for having an understanding of yourself. Is it that I just don't want to do this workout because I'm a little tired? Or is it, no, I really don't feel great and it would benefit me to not do this workout? Because I think a lot of the time you just are going to have to commit to doing it if you really want to do it. You're not always going to feel super, super psyched to do a workout and you just commit to doing it. But I do think you can make a choice. I'm going to go a little lighter on the weight or I'm going to go a little less reps so I can get through this workout today.
Always listen to your body. All right, dude, let's do 2 more. Numero 9. And this is going to you, and this is a common question, but I'm the client asking you, the trainer. Okay,
Okay.
let's play role play here.
Okay.
Darian, what health trackers do
It's
you
Trainer
use?
Darian to you.
Trainer Darian. Sorry, Trainer Darian, aka Legend Darian.
That's
What
right.
metrics or health trackers do you use? Do you use resting heart rate? Do you use HRV? Do you wear an Apple Watch? What gadgets or stuff do you track?
This is like the worst question for me because there's a reason. I mean, I don't think that these things are useless, like tracking metrics, using trackers. Of course not. Trainwell uses an Apple Watch and it's super beneficial and super cool the way it tracks workouts in our app. However, I come from a background of disordered eating and a really unhealthy relationship with fitness where I was tracking every little thing all the time to an obsessive amount. And for me, for my mental health and well being, it's not beneficial for me to track anything. I almost never weigh myself. I I will keep track of like if I'm deciding to do a like an actual strength program, I'll keep track of like the weights I'm lifting from week to week. But otherwise, I really try to not focus on the numbers. I want to focus on how am I feeling in my body and what can I do on any given day. And I think if you want to go back and listen to our running episode that we did with Kaylin, she talked about a lot about like running based on feel. And I think that is kind of at this point how I live my life is like, I don't want to let the numbers, any numbers, dictate what I'm going to do or how I'm going to feel about myself. You know, I think a lot of people have a tendency if they're weighing themselves or measuring or they let that dictate how they feel about themselves in any given day. And I don't think that that's the healthiest idea, especially not for me. So I'm going to let you answer that to see if you have something that you want to add because I think everyone is different, of course, but that's just me personally. I mean, you were my client and I answered for myself. But what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think people can get caught up on the numbers. I think the actual term is what analysis paralysis,
Mm.
where you get so sucked into your numbers. And I've been guilty of this. Like my first couple marathons, it was all heart rate training. And every workout, I was like, where's my heart rate? Every mile, what's my heart rate at? But you get so good at like tracking how you feel that I haven't used a heart rate monitor in probably 7 years, 8 years. Yeah. But I do think there are some numbers that I think are very important to me. I mentioned sleep, obviously, but that's kind of in my head. Like I don't wear my Apple Watch to bed, right? It's always charging. But in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I need to go to bed at 9. I like to get up at 5, 9, 5. I used to get up at 4:30, but not with kids. And then number two is yearly blood work for
Mhm.
sure. Definitely,
Mhm.
I need to with my our family history. Like we need to track some numbers for sure. Just make sure we're in the good range, the green, not the yellow or not the red.
Yeah, I think blood work is a really good idea, especially because there's so many assumptions people will make about someone
Yeah.
based on the way they look that is like not at all true. You know, like a person in a bigger body and a person in a smaller body can get the same diseases. You're never going to know that unless you do the blood work.
Yeah, you need to go check out what's going on under the hood for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, last question of the day. Are we good to move to our last question, number 10?
Let's roll. What you got?
Okay, should I bulk to get swole? This is like the most appropriate question for you. Do I need to bulk to gain muscle? We're going to need to break down even what bulking is and like
Yeah.
getting swole.
Yeah, there's all these terms in here: bulking, getting swole. There's like clean bulk, right? There's dirty bulk, right? So getting bulk for all the meatheads out there is, in my mind, getting more muscle mass. Getting swole is getting more muscle mass. This question, should I bulk to get swole? In my mind, is reading, do I just need to eat everything in sight to put on more mass? And the answer is no. You should always lean out first and then start to add mass. And the reason why I say that is because you don't want to turn into this kind of chunky guy with or gal with like a lot of meat on them. It's just not, especially for men. I'm speaking more so for men. It's just not a good look, right? Like, yeah, you're full, you got some muscle, but you don't have much definition. You don't look like you're summer ready. You don't have the confidence to take your shirt off. So I'm speaking to men in general, right? I always think you should get lean and then add mass. But let me add one thing here, tie a bow on it. I think everybody, regardless, should do two things, and that's to train for muscle gain and to eat for fat loss, regardless of your goal.
Yeah, I will just add a point as someone coming from a less aesthetic focus. I tend to not think about aesthetics or let that play into like what we're doing here with fitness. I know people want to feel better, look better, but I genuinely think people can have better confidence and feel better without changing the way they look. Like just really, doing some work, self-work. But the point I want to make is I think, especially for beginners, if you want to get swole, put on muscle, you can do that without shoving your face full of food. Like, just start lifting weights. But the other thing is, like, I would say don't make yourself, I think, physically uncomfortable by shoving your face full of food just to get a certain aesthetic. It's because it's not sustainable. Like, you could do that for a short period of time, but it's probably not realistic or sustainable for you. And you probably won't feel good in the process.
Yeah. That let me add one more thing here. The only way for those looking to gain muscle, right? The only way to gain muscle, right? Let's say you've been training for a while, because if you're a newbie and you just start lifting weights, you're going to see pretty good results. I'm jealous of those results because we've been training for a long time, so we don't see that. But anyways, the only way outside of drugs or even surgery to gain muscle is to be in a caloric surplus. And that caloric surplus doesn't need to be much. A caloric surplus is simply eating more than you expend in a day. And it doesn't need to be much. Maybe 500 calories, maybe 750. And that's barely anything at all. Ideally clean food. But don't be thinking that, like, if you're a skinny hard gainer, those who can eat whatever they want, like let's say, 17-year-old kid, and you just cannot put weight on to save your life, do an audit, because I bet you're not eating enough. I can tell a million stories with that. Baked potatoes in the pockets stories. So do yourself a favor, double check your caloric expenditure and your caloric intake.
Baked potatoes in the pockets. On that note, everyone, I hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode. I hope we answered your burning questions. Please check the show notes for a link to sign up for Trainwell, 14 days for free to get matched with your very own personal trainer. And if you like listening to the Trainwell podcast, please do leave us a rating and a review, 5-star rating that is, if you enjoy this podcast. And we'll talk to you next time.
See you guys. We love you.